Hi guys. Okay, I want to make this clip to go over talking about a centered pivot. I think there's a lot of misconception out there about what a centered pivot is, about some things with a stack and tilt swing, or things about the stable access. Kind of whatever you want to call it. I think people interpret some feelings as being real, and as we know in golf, feel is not real. So, in terms of understanding priorities, the the biggest difference between the top golfers in the world and the worst golfers in the world is the ability to strike the ground in the same spot every time. So controlling low point. And our low point is right off the left shoulder. So that's where the club bottoms out when our weight's forward uh, and our handle's forward. So that's the priority. That's what we want to do every single time. So in terms of making a motion to do that, I feel a lot of the guys I've learned from feel that in order to control the bottom of that arc, we want to make a centered turn. And then the question becomes, well, how do we do that? What would be the most efficient way to do that? Well, there are some instructors that advocate the left shoulder turning over the right foot or the right knee. And what that will allow to happen, the head is going to also move to the right. So when we start moving our head, we also start moving our equilibrium centers. Then to get back to the ball, because we know low point's got to be here. If I drew a line here, and this golfer moves back, he somehow has to move back to the center. So I had to make a compensation. It wouldn't be an efficient way to do things. If I was to move the head, let's say, 4 or 5 inches to the right, even down or up, whatever, I have to make a compensation to try to get that back. And the reason why that's inconsistent, because what if I don't move it 5 inches back? What if I move it 6 or 7? If I don't quite do it enough? It might not have to be that exact what I'm giving, but it's just an example of inconsistencies that can run into a swing. So in terms of understanding a measurement of staying centered, we know in terms of the movements, we are side tilting, we're rotating, and we're also extending. Now everybody does this. Luke Donald over the right here does this. Boo Weekley, any player, Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan, they all side tilted, they all rotated, and they all extended. We just like to maybe see to a certain extent in terms of being able to stay centered. So I want to kind of go over that from this face-on view, and Grant does a really good job of this, obviously. So take the left shoulder, and you can just draw a line to the right hip. Left shoulder's the, like I said, the low point, or you can also call it the center of the swing. And from there, you can kind of just run that line up to the sternum, which is our center of rotation. And I'll just draw a couple of kind of dots to indicate those 2 points. So as Grant starts his swing, we're going to see that his left shoulder moves along that blue line. So his left shoulder is moving downward, and his right's moving up. So that's the side tilting left. As he's tilting left, the orientation of his spine is changing because he's also rotating and extending. Okay, and when we get to about P3 here, the left arm parallel to the ground, we're going to really start to see this extension piece come into play. So the extension piece is if we had, if this was his right side, let's say, as he goes from P3 to P4, top of the backswing, he's going to be stretching this out. He's going to be stretching out his right side. He's going to keep extending or standing up, as we see right here. As we can see at the top of his backswing, that red line that I drew is covering his left shoulder. So that's a centered pivot right there. Left shoulder's moved from the center of the swing to the center of rotation. Again, a very efficient way to do things, the least amount of compensations. Grant also talks about having the maximum amount of time to make the least amount of compensations. Or if we're moving around our centers, we're going to have the least amount of time to make the maximum amount of compensations. So, just going to take a look here now at Luke Donald's swing. I'm going to do the same thing. Take the line to the right hip and kind of just move it up to the sternum. I'll do kind of a, and again, this doesn't necessarily have to be exact, but it's to get an idea of the way the body's moving. So again, we got the left shoulder moving down along that line. Now we're going to start to see the extension from P3 to P4 start to extend. Not quite as much as Grant, but we can definitely see at the top of the backswing that left shoulder is basically right on line with that yellow dot that I put on. Again, a center pivot. I'm also going to take a look at a few swings here just to give everybody an idea. Got Hunter Mahan. Same thing. Left shoulder moving down. Again, that's the left tilting lateral flexion. B3, then the extent is as he's rotating. Now we can really see the extension come into play. Camera moves a little bit, but again, if I was to draw something at the end of that to indicate where the sternum was, so that point that you draw on the sternum isn't moving. It's not moving to the side, and the left shoulder is moving down and also back. Another good one to look at would be Ricky Fowler. So again, the left shoulder moves down 8 or 9 inches. It's not inexact. It depends on the body type. And it's also going to move back 8 or 9 inches, again to the center. Left shoulder is going to move down along that line, rotating, and now he's going to start extending. Left shoulder right on top, or that line is right on top of that left shoulder. And again, with both these swings here, we can see they're very centered. The weight's basically centered, maybe slightly forward for both of these swings. So when we're talking about a centered pivot, when Stack and Tilt talks about a centered pivot, and we're talking about tilting left, that's just one of 3 pieces. We're not actually making a swing where we're really tilting left, we're moving our head. Because if we get a swing, I'll just do this with Ricky over here. If this left shoulder moves, let's say, down 10, 11 inches and doesn't go back enough, that's when we're going to start to see that the head start to move down and towards the target. Again, we just want to stay centered. If the left shoulder moves back and not down enough, that's when we're going to start to see this head start to move over to the right. It can even move a little bit up as well. Again, then we have to make compensations on the downswing to try to find that center point. So hope this helps clarify any misconceptions there might have been about how to stay centered. Again, there's a lot of good instructors out there talking about tilting left. They know what they're talking about, and just kind of wanted to do this for students or other instructors that might need a little bit more information, a little more sophistication. on what it means to make a centered pivot or a stable axis swing or a stack and tilt swing. Just different names given to what I just tried to show here. So check it out when you're watching coverage on TV. See how the left shoulder's working, how it's working to the center, and yet it's also working downward, and how if it doesn't quite line up, how that affects what the head's doing or what the golfer has to do to compensate. Thanks, and look forward to further discussion.